two, 1 2 1 2. Hi everyone, how are we tonight? Please say hello if you're here. I been a bit delayed today. I've been doing a bit of filming, so it's yeah, problematic. It's not my favourite thing to do, shall we say. So I've just brought up a track very quickly. Yes. Hello, is anybody there? Okay. Yeah. Okay. How are we all? This is back on now. Okay, so tonight I didn't really prepare, to be quite honest, so thought I'd pull up a track I've been meaning to have a look at, and it's a cover. Well, the piano is a cover of an old Italo house track called "Together" by Smallage, and I loved it. And I wanted to do something for one of my sets quickly, so I started it, but I didn't get time to finish it. So let's have a listen. Okay, so yeah, that's all I've got right now. So with everything, when I start a track, I always start with a lead. So let's have a look at piano first. So it was a cover of an old school Italo house track. So I've got an M1 video. And then oh, so you'll probably find, specifically with the M1 plugin, that a lot of the presets aren't actually mono. So this is a good thing, because obviously we're making tracks for clubs, and a lot of the time, if I like kind of duplicate this, sometimes I'll be going for a piano. Keyscape. Hey Sean. So we use Keyscape instead. Piano. Up. So what's happening is it's going to mono, and the volume's still kind of there, but we're losing a lot of the character. And like a lot of club systems are mono. I have this argument with people; they seem to think that they're not, but I was questioning myself, and I phoned up a friend of mine who does all festivals stuff like that, and he said, "Yeah, they do a lot of the time have mono systems. So really, want your tracks to sound as good in mono as in stereo. And we all like a wide track, but really, what are you making the tracks for? You know, you're making them for the clubs. They are. You want to really, really be concentrating on a mono track. And if you're concentrating, on Spotify and that's where your tracks go in, then you can mix it different. I have, watched videos with Jason Joshua, who's the biggest mix engineer in the world, and he basically says, "Fuck mono." But I disagree. I'm not one to disagree with him because it's so good, but it's a lot of the clubs are mono, and I've just triple checked that to make sure. So you should always make sure your track works in mono. Pianos can be, especially with plugins, can be a bit misleading sometimes, and they can collapse in mono. So what's this? Now, if you're mixing just in stereo and you lose that, the volume's quite a big difference. So you have to be mindful, about what you're trying to achieve. And for me, it's got to sound as good as possible in mono. So if you can find a mono piano that works in mono, amazing. If you've got a piano that works in mono, sounds wide when you're listening on the speakers, obviously I'm listening on headphones, then even better. But let's look at this piano because it is an old school piano. Okay. Let's look at the things that people would do on this. So, then one. Okay, so you might listen to the M1 and go, "Oh, it's wide." Okay, so generally, because of the reverb, and a reverb. For example, now you've got the sides, okay, and it's not affecting what's going on in the center, which is amazing. So yes, TMASA, psychoacoustic techniques to get widening. Yes, exactly. That's what I'll probably do. Reverb is a key one to use here. Okay, still thinking to yourself, right? This piano isn't wide enough. There are plugins to do that kind of thing. So, a lot of the stuff affects the mono signal still. So if you add on some chorus, that course, you've still got the central image, and you've now got a second image, which is creating a bit of phasey, flangey sound, which is what we use this plugin for. So a good idea is always to look at the kind of correlation. Shows you whether or not in mono it's going to sound bad, and that sounds pretty good. To be honest with you. We can see that in mono, the mono system, that's still going to be good. Now, you might want to put this on a send, EQ it, so you're not adding frequency you don't want on the sides. Again, we can add a delay, bit of a ping pong, which again just makes it perceived to be louder. And the plugin I really like, actually, would put some reverb on. So let's. So obviously, if we're putting reverb on something, I'll do it in the mix. Might put the reverb on. I might want to duck it, so I might actually use different reverb just because it's got a duck on it. Duck it to it, so 7th head one. Shift. Being picky there, it's in isolation. Sounds like a track, but have a listen to that. So it is making it sound wider, right? But, and obviously I'm listening on headphones, I don't know if you guys are, but really, what I want to be doing is thinking about, if I'm listening to the speakers, how do I make it wider? I just have to wear headphones sessions. Does it all sound okay, everyone, by the way? Okay, so I've got reverb. My favorite plugin making things wide, there's a few different ones. In fact, I'll go through them all. So is the ones that really give me width without destroying the center image for when it's in mono. And I've talked about this before. So when you're creating a second image, you're going to have a central image clashing with yours, so it could be creating phase issues, as it does quite a lot. What I do is look for the plugin that works the best on each sound separately. So my favorite, sometimes this, okay, space control. Again, it's psychoacoustic. So down to mono. Let's have a listen to this. Okay, we can see that's just made it really wide. This is a really good plugin. And That automatically made it sound wide. In fact, I'm going to listen with my headphones off. Sorry. Okay. So you want to try it on in the mix in stereo, but listen to it in mono. Make sure it's level matched, because if it's a lot louder when it's wider, which it is a lot of the time, when you come to mono, your track's not going to work on a mono system. Even though you're listening in a stereo, if you're making club tracks, right, then this is what you need to be doing. It's so important, and checking the phase. Sometimes you can't hear it, so these meters are really good. So let's have a listen to that. That's a really good plugin. Okay, it's expensive though. Let's have a look at something that's a little cheaper. Straight away here you can see it's going into correlation meter in a negative way. So got that there. Let's just turn that on and off. So what we need to do first of all is level match. It's just a bit too low down there. I wouldn't use that. Always look at it, because it's going to affect you on a bigger system that is mono. So what else? Classic ozone imager. We've got ozone imager, and Let's turn that on. Well, this is nice. It's not creating loads of phase issues, but like, what's it doing to the center? And for me, because the space control seems to be making it the body wider without kind of stretching it. And in this instance, and it's not every single time, I think the space control sounds better. So that. Yeah, I definitely prefer what this is doing. It's really good. I mean, there's not. It can also. It isn't doing it right now. Let me push it out. See there where it's going red, showing there's some phase issues. You could see it here on the correlation meter. What's going on? You get correlation meters which show all the different frequencies. I've got to tell you, space control, it is amazing. It's not always the best. Things. It's supposed to be quite good. This really affects phase. Sounds quite good, but like in mono, I think the center, the punch of the space control is better, and you've just got to try all the different ones. So yeah, so that's what I'd do for the width. Plugins. Some of you might only use stock plugins. Let's have a listen to. Sounds like it's all you've got. This is all you've got. So mono 120. Okay, that isn't going to work on a mono signal. So there's your problem. So space control is what I would use for this, for making it wide. The Valhalla on that, it did sound a bit better. So I'll put it in the group and side to the piano itself. Beautiful read. So yeah, so that's what I do to make it wider, but it's always about just checking mono signal. And you might, because it's making it wider, you might want to try the reverb before it, weirdly enough. Because then when you're listening mono, there might be a bit more reverb there. Bug there. Do you see that? It keeps changing the level of it. And this is a great plugin because you've got preamps and you've got true phase and tell you when you phase in. It's really good. This just for putting on sounds just to see if there is any phase issues and kind of fix it. And I would say to you, like I say to all of my clients, is the most important thing is what you put into a track. And now, if I had a piano now that sounded great, collapsed in mono, and that happens loads on pianos, then I would look for another piano. Okay? Don't move forward to the next thing. I know it sounds good. I promise you, listening, we think, oh, it's okay. And then give it to a big DJ. They play it on a binary, which might be mono, and a festival. Your piano's gone. Main sound's gone. For me, every element really should be mixed in mono. Obviously not in mono, but listen to and mixed in mono. So that's space controller piano. What else? Depends what else is in the mix. So messed around with the drums of this. Like I said, I made this ages ago just for a DJ set. So I had a little something. I played the original out, and it just lacked in a lot of energy. A gig, so I made this just for that. So a bit of compression on that. What I'll do first of all is just go into it, just mess around with it because it seems a little bit loose. Go into it, and I'll always try to get the sound as perfect as possible in the synth or the original source, so we're not messing around with it and doing processes that might create phase issues or change it in some kind of way. So yes, so there's that. But okay, let's talk about pianos because it's a bit off the cuff this. What would we do to the piano? Well, it all matters is what's in the mix and how does it sound in the mix. So let's just say this was the mix. probably think that it's a little bit muddy down the bottom end compared with the bass. So I might want to move it from the bass. So just use my ears in the mix. Create a bit of a low cut or a low shelf, depending what's to do with. I might think to myself, look at where the bass is hitting the piano. Obviously, I would use my ears, and I could probably do this with frequency capture, but bass. So we can see the bass is hitting the piano, and we might want to sidechain it. I might use a track spacer for that. Would probably be better to. I'll just do the low cut first of all, get it to a level that I think's right. Because it's not a bass with a load of character, I'll definitely make that manual straight away. Same reason. I'd get the bass, just have a quick listen to it, and just try and figure out where the main characters are. So 233 is the bit that's going to be clashing with the piano, really. The important frequencies. What I might do is either sidechain it in the Pro Q3 or use a plugin like Backspacer or Soothe. Now, Soothe is really good, right? Bring this in because I want you to see it. It's amazing. Find the frequency. Hard. Do it. But I want it to be high quality. So 4 times. Let's look at this now. You look in the bottom left hand corner over here. Look at all the latency that that's creating. Real problem. So you can bounce it down to audio, but I find when you use too many plugins in Ableton, there's nothing worse than pressing play and looking at the line and then being out of time with the actual audio. I try not to use Soothe unless I really need to, or if I can bounce it down. That's that. It's just sidechaining to those frequencies, really. And so I might use track spacer. So track spacer. What I want to do, I want a fast attack and I want a pretty faster release, right? But because the piano, the bass is mono, I only need to do it to the mono signal on the bass, on the piano. Go mono, pull it fully down. Right, so 30 to 400. We'll have a listen now. Just listen to that. Jeez. You hear the top of the bass coming through a little bit more. So like that there would sound really good. Like if you listen on your phone, the bass would be a bit more prominent and everything else. The question I'm asking myself is, how is it affecting the piano? It's taking out frequencies that I didn't really like anyway. But when it's not side chaining, them frequencies bother me. And no, they don't. So I really like what that does. But let's look at the latency on that. So 0 samples. So I do try and avoid using Soothe, even though it is amazing. There are some other plugins like acoustic or audio, like Space Controls, a little bit. That's so amazing. I would keep on. The thing about this is I could bounce this down now. But if I want to commit to that stereo width on the sound, I could bounce it down. Excuse me. So yeah, I use Track Spacer, and that's because I can do it in the mono signal, and I can choose the frequencies specifically that I want to sidechain. So, I don't want to take out the bass, the real bottom frequencies of the piano on the offbeat. They kind of work, but use your ears and do it and listen to it. To me, the bass just sounds a little bit more prominent there. Go try a bit higher. You don't want to do it too wide because you can hear it pressing the piano and the frequencies. We're not trying to hear the piano dipping. What we're trying to hear is the top of the bass come through. Because let's just say I like that sound, and that sound sounds great on its own in the beginning of the track. So all I'm trying to do is make them work. That's what. Now, for this track, I'll probably do more drums, so I wouldn't add a delay or try a delay. If I'm going to add a delay to this, it's going to be to fill a gap, not because I just want to slap it on. You don't need to do it. And I see people going, you've got to put a delay on the piano, you've got to do this. You don't have to do it. The piano's the main thing in the track. It's the lead. It's up front. We don't want anything clashing with the piano. That's lead 1. At this moment in time, the bass is lead 2. The kick and the clap are lead 3. So you need to give everything its position of importance. So yeah, that sounds good. It sounds really good. Okay, so maybe I just think the piano needs a little bit more density. Right. So this is a quick fix, and I'm using it because it works. So everyone's favorite OTT. Okay, so OTT free with Ableton. You can buy it separately by, I think it's XFER. But people slap it on and they go. And they go, oh my God, it's louder, it's better, I love it. They might turn this down a little bit. 90% of the time when people give me this plugin, it's always louder, right? The thing about it is this. So let's just say this one, for example, right? Like this. Let's say you like this. And I go, okay, turn off. A lot of people come to me and they go, and it's like, why do you like this? Oh, I love the distortion of it. It really brings the piano through. It's not. It's just louder. Doing a mixing for loudness course at the moment. There's uploading to the website tone, and go deep into this. But if you don't level match everything, you can't tell what it's doing. So I'll level match this to perceived loudness. This does is, it's not the best example of this, but it slams the track and it gives it a load of compression in the upper mids, right? Which turns up the upper mids. And what happens is people go, that sounds better. Okay? And that's because of the Fletcher-Muntz curve, which is, it always sounds better in the mid range. Anything that's more prominent in the mid sounds louder, sounds better. It's the way our brains work. Okay. Then when you level match it, and you say, right, this is off, and you listen to it, and you listen to the bass and how the bottom frequencies of the piano connect you to the bass and the rest of the track, right? And what they've done is they've concentrated on the 2 to 4K where OTT generally hammers you, right? And then what they've done is they've not listened to the bottom of the piano, so it's louder. And then what they've done is they've made it louder, but they've disconnected the piano from the track. Okay, and whilst this is really good, if you don't know what you're listening for and you're not level matching and you're not saying to you, right, frequency character recognition, what's it doing to the bottom of the sound, bottom frequencies, the mid frequencies, the high frequencies, what's it doing to the transient, to the body, tail or the release, what's it doing to the tone of it, right? You've got to ask yourself them questions to see what it's actually doing. You can't get a proper answer if it's not level matched. Okay. So, for example, on this, it's kind of taken away the transient a little bit, even though most people seem to think that it's adding to it. Basically, what it's doing is just slamming the hell out of it. So what I would do is this and go. I'd use the different parameters to get a sound that I really like with OTT. And get it, and then sometimes you can just use it full. Generally, what I would do is go, I really like how let's just say it's slamming the transient, right? It's adding that fizzle at the top end. I really like it. But what it's doing, like, what are the negatives to it? So it's taken away from the transient in the center and really the weight of the piano. So I like some of it, but I don't like some of it. That's when we just use the mix, doing in parallel. So then push it to extreme to get what you like, just like any normal compressor, and then turn it down. Now it's giving it a bit more body, which I like, a bit more density, and it has given that kind of over compressed sound a little bit at the top. So I do like what that does. Sound like in the mix. That's all that matters. The mix, I don't like it, okay, because this piano doesn't need doesn't need that parallel signal in there. Bounces a lot better without it. And what happens is people, they go to these plugins and they just think it sounds louder. But what I'm doing there, just listen to the groove of the piano with this on and off, right? So this is off. Listen to the piano and the relationship of the, the frequencies in it, but the attack, tail, but the groove of it. Okay. Okay, now let's turn it on. It's kind of lost the bounce of the piano, giving you that offbeatness, which you really, really like. And obviously, this isn't the right plugin for this. But the lesson here is level match the plugin always. See what you like, right? Find something, and there's pros and the cons. See if it works in parallel, okay? And in parallel, if it works, you're most likely going to be doing it in isolation like I did there, and then always check it in, okay? So what, just to let you know what I'm thinking about, people who've done my frequency character recognition knows that it's all about what it matters in the mix. So I'm not concentrating on what that sounds like. I'm concentrating on the other elements of the mix. If it's high and known, what's the transient, the kick, what's the hi-hat like, what's the clap like, and what's the groove like? How's it making me feel? So OTT in this instance, I'm not going to use it for a couple of reasons, but I would try this like this, and I would obviously play around for a bit longer. But I'm trying to make an Italo house track. I want it to be true to the original. I really like this piano quite raw, So I'm going to make it wider. Quite buggy, this space control, quite honest. I contacted Acoustica about anyone who's thinking of buying it. Every now and then because I do a lot of my lessons on Zoom, every now and then when I change the audio driver, this goes crazy, like it's nearly blowing my speakers. And as you can see now, but all we've been doing is turn it off, but it changed the volume output, So if I'm not thinking about that or seeing it, it might change the volume back up when I've tried to level match it. And yeah, it's proper buggy. But it's not. It's also great. Yeah, so that's my piano now. Then listen in the mix. A good thing to do when you're doing anything, if you're still learning, you're still training your ears, whenever you've got your plugins, turn it on and off using these on Metric AB. The Metric AB can be your best friend a lot of the time. Messages. So Yellow 6. Hey Jenna, wider is free too. Cool. Tiamasa. Thank you. Awful, really. Transient's gone weird. Yeah, I guess you're talking about the OTT there. I could have spent a bit more time. Yeah, the thing is, hi Paul. The thing is this is how people come to me, right? And we're all on a journey. Like I remember when I was saying to Yellow 6 the other day, who's on the chat, I was saying we're all on a journey. So like when we learn how to low cut something, right? We go, you should low cut that because it makes room for the kick and the bass at the bottom, like a piano or something. And then what happens is that we start low cutting and thinking, oh no, I want the kick and bass right. And we start getting rid of the body of stuff. Okay? And then we go like my clients come back to me, and then we'll go, no, you've taken the body out of it. Go down, we're trying to do it, and what happens is in the journey, we learn things, we do it too much. We learn things, we do it too much, and OTT is one of those things. Okay, and I'm a strong believer that if it works, it works, but you should always level match it, because a lot of the time this is creating. You heard it there; it sounded awful, creating phase issues. The sound didn't sound right, and it took away from the groove of the track, and that's not what I want. So it's everything you've got to learn. You've got to do something, put it on, and then make mistakes and come back. Because I'm guessing you guys are a lot like me. You've not been to university, you've not learned. I was lucky enough to go in the studio and learn from a lot of people like me back in the day, who was making house music with some of the best engineers in the business 25 years ago. Now, and I'm still learning off the internet. I mean, a lot of people learning off the internet, but there's no structure there. So it's make your mistakes and learn from them. That's why I do the one-to-one mentorship. So that's the piano. We might compress the piano. Obviously, we've got the OTT. I might use a compressor. This track had a lot more space. I might go for something like a Fairchild or a Shadow Hills straight onto it. Now, sometimes tape really works on piano, so I'll just do this so you can hear it, because I like pianos. Tape. They all sound different all the time. Let's get virtual tapes on that. First of all, this is by Slate. It's probably the only Slate plugin I use now. Sound. So turn that on 15 IPS, because this gives it too big a bump at the bottom. Okay, so I'm going to try and push this to 0, because in tape back in the day, 0 VU, imagine your analog, you're not going to digitally clip, right? So you always had a bit more headroom. It's funny, I've just been talking about this today, except for loudness cars. So you could push it past 0 and get the saturation and the sound of it a bit more than what you can with digital. There's no headroom when it goes past 0 as such. I know there is with 32-bit, but it's like this kind of bends the sound, whereas like if clipping in the box, it's just slicing it, creating a distortion. So I'd push this. And now you can hear it compressing in the piano. So I really like that. So I might push that a little bit more. Hear it. It killed the dynamics when I slammed it. Okay, so I'm going to turn that on and off. Now, thinking about buying this plugin, just to let you know, actually doesn't sound too bad here right now. It sounds a little bit louder when it's on, right? And that's because I think they do it on purpose to trick you about it. Now, this doesn't sound as bad as usually, because I usually had a gain after. Turn it up a degree, but I'll always start on the piano, on and off. Definitely adding a bit of volume. So what we do is turn it down. I think it's I like the sound of that. It's giving a bit more density. I can hear the tape compression. It sounds old school. I like it. But what does it sound like in the mix? Because that's all that matters. Okay, so it's giving it a bit more density. It's had to give it a bit more character. The mids seem to pop through a little bit more, and it just seems to be the compression seems to be making it a bit tighter. So this, I always like tape on piano. You can hear, you can really hear it there. And I really like this plugin actually. It just does something that sounds great. But it's not always the best plugin. So I would try this. I would try the UAD, try Soft Tube, and just slam them and see which sounds the best. Okay, so made the drums ages ago, but got the S2400, so I've made these drums analog style. I'd probably change these to be a bit more modern now. Difference all them things together make. Each one was only a little bit, but it really makes it sound like a piano now. Every little plugins help the journey on it. Yeah, that's kind of what I would do with piano. What would you guys do? Anything you think you'd do? It's all about it sounding good in mono. That was the key where we started off tonight. It was about making sure that the piano and all your sounds sound good in mono. But what we've done here was we've taken out frequencies we don't want. We've worked on the sound at its source, first of all. Always the main thing to do. Then we've taken out a bit of bottom end, which I would always do anyway. I've not EQ'd it because I didn't think it needed any EQ at that time. Okay. And then I've realised it's hiding. I listened to it in the mix. I realised it's hiding the top of the bass a little. I wanted that to come through. So I sidechained it with a track spacer, only in the mono signal. Okay. We've then got a tape machine on there which has compressed it, and you can hear the compression. Also give it some saturation and tone. Really, really work. Next in the chain is Space Control Pro 2. We've just made it seem wider for the stereo listeners, for the people who are listening on Spotify or home or whatever. We do want it to sound a bit wider. And then we've just added a reverb on top of that. A reverb that we really like. So it's now, let's just say I've got my mix together. I'd come back to it and I might think, I might think to myself, okay, I might need a bit of top end. Right. So I could EQ it, but personally, adding vector. Put that for the space control. I just got this. Level match here, because when I would do this would be right at the end when I've got everything in, and I know that all the other frequencies are working with everything else in the track. Listening to the whole mix, I would just think, oh, the piano needs to a little bit more on the top end. So there's that. And I might go. Okay, so I like it. I like the transients up the top end, but maybe we want to bring the transients through a little bit. So when we can use like a multi-band transient kind of thing. So you can use neutron, spiff. Guys have got. This just seems a bit. Yeah, put that there. I need a bit more punch from it. So I'd do it in the mix, but then what I would do is I would go, right, just listen what I'm affecting here. What I'm looking for, a bit more of that. Listen to it in the mix. Do it across the mix. I might do it in mono, I might do it whatever. On and off. Because there's nothing else there. The bass, the top of the bass is a bit lower. It just gives the track a bit more punch. Obviously, I'm listening on headphones, and we'll be doing this on the speakers, and doing it that way. No, I don't. Spectre doesn't have an isolation part, and the reason why I do everything extreme is so I can actually hear what it's affecting. And my ears are tuned into that frequency, like Spiff, like Spectre, and then I bring it down all the way down and bring it in the mix with everything else. See, when we listened to the Spiff, that area, you didn't really like it, but I knew that was a bit of a knock, and I knew that was going to give the piano a bit more energy in those areas. Okay, so that's what I do at the end of the mix. Obviously, this track isn't mixed. I've just any questions? Remember, everything that I'm showing you it's all to do with whatever else is in the mix. This is the piano. It's got to sound amazing. What else might I do to the piano? To be honest with you, I want to do as little as possible. You know, but it is the lead, so I've done quite a lot on there. There's a lot of plugins that I wouldn't necessarily use, but you know, EQ always, sidechain always important, bit of tape, sounded great. Bit of added tonality right at the end because it needed it. Pick transients, okay, yeah, I like what it's doing. Width 100%, reverb 100%. And if we go back to the beginning, remember it's going to sound good in mono, so let's listen to the whole thing in mono. So sounds loud. Sounds louder. Oh, it sounds louder now because we've added the Spectre and the Spiff at the end. which we're adding on at the end of the mix, not during the mix. But during the mix, we'll be checking the monitorability. So yes, ear training over and over for the win. It takes time, and even I miss stuff. Something I might do, or what I would recommend, is if you look at your piano, there's usually a lot of mud in it. Okay, so. And obviously we've sidechained the piano to the bass, so that's okay. Sometimes what I do is this. Okay, I like those frequencies. The 300s mark, they could probably take them out, but we have taken them out. Took them out with the track spacer. So, listen in the mix. That. In the mix, I don't like it taken out. And everything, all that matters is how it sounds in the mix. Okay, thank you everybody for joining in. I really appreciate you leaving comments. Please let me know, what you want me to do. I'm here just to show you how I do things. Every Wednesday night, 6 p.m. If you're interested in the one-to-one mentorship, it really helps people. We identify the key areas of your tracks for your room improvement, and people are loving it. So, yeah, thank you, everyone. I'll see you next week.